Good evening. Welcome to Beyond the Gatekeepers. I am Bishop-elect Vanessa M. Brown. I am your co-moderator, your moderator tonight, and your host. I am glad to be here with you on tonight. And tonight we are ending our series for reopening and revisioning. It's been wonderful. It's been robust. It's been such wonderful information that we have received. If you've missed any of the episodes, we actually go back and look at it. I want to thank Facebook Live. I want to thank YouTube and Twitter and all those that have been with us since we've been started. We are grateful for your presence. We ask that you will please share this conversation. We say good evening to everyone. I see you all coming in from Las Vegas and the U.S. Virgin Islands and San Francisco and Oakland and Frisco, Texas and Richmond, California. I see you. We're grateful for your presence on tonight. I want to introduce this wonderful, wonderful group of preachers, men and women of God who are here with us on tonight, who are here to help us think more about revisioning and reopening. And so our first guest on tonight is Bishop Allyson Abrams. She is the senior pastor of Empowerment Liberation Cathedral. She is also the presiding prelate of Numa Christian Fellowship. Bishop Abrams, please come and greet the people and let them know what you are working on right now.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. Thank you so much, Bishop-elect Brown and Bishop Flunder and Bishop Pearson for having me on tonight. Right now, I am excited. Just received a PhD in practical theology, so I'm excited about that. I'm currently trying to get pastors to do a survey for me regarding COVID-19, working on providing groups continually and individual therapy for mental health through our Empowerment Justice Center, and also working on adding another location. Also, I'm excited to be added to be a commissioner on the DC Mayor's Interfaith Council. So I'm excited, along with working with the College of Bishops, affirming bishops with TFAM. So thank you so much again, Dr. Brown, for having me on tonight.
My joy, your plate is full, but we thank God and we congratulate you on you receiving your PhD and becoming a commissioner on the DC Mayor's Council. Amen.
Thank you so much.
Our next guest coming to us by way of Atlanta is Bishop Dennis Meredith. He is the senior pastor of Tabernacle Baptist Church. Bishop Meredith, will you come and greet the people and let them know some of the things that you're doing in the great city of Atlanta?
Oh, well, hello, and thank you, Dr. Brown, for having me on. I certainly do appreciate this. I'm going to turn this other light a little too bright. Now it's too dark. Okay. Anyway, well, we have not come back in physically. We're still doing virtual. And my guess is we'll continue to do virtual probably through until September. Probably the dilemma for us coming back in is because of my illness, I'm too compromised to take the vaccine. And so not having the vaccine still puts me at a pretty significant risk. But, I'm actually in negotiating with my son, who's going to take over the church, negotiating with him about my retirement at this point. But it doesn't appear that we're going to go back to normal. It does not appear at this stage, because my sanctuary is been turned into a complete recording studio, television recording studio. So as I said before, I can't even go in there and barely turn the lights on. He's got cameras. He's got 4 cameras. I mean, it's just huge. So we are actually discussing how to remain virtual with a limited amount of in-person worship. That's where we are now.
And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Thank you so much, Bishop Meredith. That's great. Thank you so much. Our next guest is no stranger to us as well, Bishop Tonyia M. Rawls. She is the senior pastor of Sacred Souls Community Church, United Church of Christ. She is also the founder and executive director of Freedom Center for Social Justice. Bishop Rawls, please greet the people and let them know what you are working on right now. You're muted, Bishop.
So you just missed all of that wonderful intro and my talk about you, huh? But I am so grateful to be here today and having an opportunity to join such close colleagues. Be coming back in around September. That is our plan, and we're actually very excited about it. We're using the month of July and August to ready ourselves, but also to take advantage of the opportunity to get our people re-engaged so that everybody is a part of the reopening, not just this pastor and the clergy, but all of us coming together and also reimagining what ministry may look like. It will never be the same again, and I'm actually quite glad about it. We serve a dynamic God, and change is the constant thing that is present. So it is about us listening individually and collectively to the voice of God in that direction. I also do want to lift up a couple of things that the Freedom Center for Social Justice is doing. Many of you know we have a series called Liberating Theologies that we do. We're so excited that this event in September will be hosted by none other than Reverend Dr. Emily Towns. We're going international this year. We took advantage of the fact that we can't all physically come together. So this year, in partnership with the Fellowship and Bishop Tolton and Reverend Dr. Kwok Kwilan, Asia and Africa will be the focus of this year's Liberating Theologies. And in addition to that, there'll be a pre-event the day before. Also, we want to encourage people to share about our transgender seminary and cohort. We're in our 9th cohort now of trans seminarians around the country and Bible students. And then lastly, our Transgender Faith in Action Network retreat. So I'm just glad to be here and glad to get ready for this, what I'm sure will be an amazing conversation. And hello and thank you also to my sister, Bishop Flunder, and Bishop Pearson in his absence.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Bishop Rawls. And last but certainly not least is Pastor Elliott Sommerville. He is our National Prayer Director for TFAM. Pastor Elliott, come and greet the people and let them know what you're working on, what's happening.
Good evening, everyone. I bring you greetings from the very warm city of Phoenix, Arizona. And I am so grateful, so incredibly grateful to be here with each of you, Bishop Rawls, Bishop Abrams, Bishop Meredith, and my own Bishop Flunder, and of course, my sister, Bishop-elect Dr. Vanessa M. Brown. Thank God for all of you all. In this season, we are doing like many of you, finding ways to reinvent ourselves and reinvent exactly what it is that we are doing for ministry and kingdom. And right now we are working on a pet project called the Life Project. And what we are focusing on, it's a nonprofit organization where after its inception and launch, I'll be the founder and director of that particular adventure. I say adventure because it's going to be something. But we are focusing basically on the homeless population with an emphasis on LGBT youth and our trans community. When moving to the Phoenix area, I did not realize that there was such a robust trans community here. And we want to take advantage of some of the resources that are available and distribute those resources so that we can reach people and bless people. So that's what we're doing in this season.
That's a wonderful work, Pastor. Thank you so much. And finally, our bishop is coming, Bishop Yvette Adrian Flunder. She is our presiding prelate of the Fellowship of Affirming Ministries. Of course, she is the senior pastor. They're about to celebrate 30 years, amen, of City of Refuge United Church of Christ in Oakland, California. Please, Bishop Flunder, come and greet the people and set the stage for tonight's conversation.
Well, good evening, good evening, good evening to all of my beloved who are part of this conversation tonight, who are in what we call the magic squares, the Hollywood squares of holiness. What a joy it is to see everyone and to be able to at least see your faces, to be able to connect in that way. It's a joy and a privilege. Some of my favorite people in the world are on this particular broadcast tonight, and I praise God for your presence. We are concluding what we thought was going to be 3 installments, and I think this is our 6th or 7th installment, having the conversation primarily because this whole idea of what we will do after the COVID is a moving target. And it keeps shifting and changing over and over and over again. And it's changing us over and over and over again. I declare we will not come forth from it the way that we went into it. And we have heard some incredible leaders, you included, who have given and contributed your time, experience, and treasure to helping and supporting all of us, each of us, for all of us, to be able to be the kind of different that God and Spirit intends that we be coming forth from this. And yes, we have been changed. First, because we didn't die. There's that. And somebody said it was the goodness of the Lord. I said, well, be mindful, because there are many people who did die. And I don't want to suggest that they did not enjoy the goodness of the Lord. And we are living, the saints told me, to live again. That's what they told me. But my truth is, I believe that we have been left in the earth realm because we are a part of God's what's next, an active part. You all were already dangerous, incredibly dangerous, before COVID. And now you are so dangerous in terms of the ways in which God has dealt with you personally, corporately, physically, financially. I know a little bit about a lot of things. And I do know that God is working in meticulous ways. And so in this final installment, we want to think even more deeply, because many of us have scheduled our times to bring our people back to the sanctuaries in some way, or some way to concretize the changes that have been made in our worship life, our teaching, all of that. What is that going to be? And sometimes it's going to be some parts that we were before, but the majority of it will be what has happened to us, in what ways we've been impacted during this season. We need your wisdom. There are people that come to this broadcast in very large numbers because they are seeking to hear what real leaders, those who are truly engaged in this work, how you are thinking, how we will emerge from this, and how we will come out of it doing more justice, having more mercy, and walking more humbly before God. My prayer is that we will hear that from each other tonight. And I give you my deepest appreciation for hanging out with us to have this family talk. God bless you.
Thank you, Bishop Flunder. And you are right. This is a family talk. We're so happy for our Facebook Live audience, our Twitter audience, our YouTube audience that's with us tonight. I want you to hang in there with us. We're going to give you opportunity to put questions in the chat, in the comment sections when we call for it. But right now, I just have very specific questions for our panelists on this evening. And I want to ask a twofold question at once, if I can. That question is, and this is personal to you, how are you doing in the midst of this pandemic? Because yes, we are still in the midst of a pandemic, although they've lifted restrictions in several states and people are walking around with no mask. It's still a pandemic to me. So we're still in the midst of a pandemic. How are you doing and what did you learn? And so I'm going to start with Bishop Rawls.
I am doing much better. I was pretty jacked up and didn't know it until I took my break. Amen, somebody. I have a 3-month sabbatical that I'm in the midst of, and I committed to taking the month of May completely off. I went off by myself with the blessings of my wonderful wife, Gwendolyn, my wife of 22 years and partner. And I'm noting that because, you know, when you're doing that kind of a walkabout, sometimes you got to do it by yourself. And she's my best friend, but, you know, best friends, family, all of that. Sometimes God just needs you alone. And I saw many things, a lot of it painful to me, as I saw things I had denied myself, as I saw the exhaustion that I was experiencing, you know, guiding not only a congregation, but also a nonprofit through 2020. But I also learned some powerful things about myself. I got reconnected with the things that bring me joy as a leader, the things that feed my soul. Water always does it for me. I was, you know, in Florida by the ocean, and I had only myself to blame. And I wanted, you know, we're going to have this talk. I want to just be very transparent. I really had only myself to own. I don't have a boss like that, right? There's nobody kind of over me saying, you can't go, you can't take a break. And when we're involved in this kind of social justice work at that intersection of faith and justice, if we're not careful, we lose ourselves. We run the risk of losing ourselves. Bishop Flunder, in an earlier conversation this week, had told me about something that came up last week, Bishop-elect Brown, about this theology of rest.
Of leisure.
Of leisure. It was, I didn't have language for what I did, but it is exactly what God told me to do, to just stop, not be apologetic about it and those things. And the second part of your question was what again? I'm sorry. So I'm better. And then the other piece was what? The second part?
What did you learn?
What I learned was I have way more power than I thought in terms of my own self-care, and how There's a lot of things I have to unlearn. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I have a background similar to many of you, you know, when coming through the Church of God in Christ and the Baptist church and being a latchkey kid. And at 5, your mom says, when I'm gone, you're the mom, you know, at 5. And for me, I took that whole thing on. I'm like, oh, okay. So that means I put myself behind. And none of us as leaders do ourselves any justice by doing that. So this idea of thinking of mind, body, and spirit, and you do have to start with the mind because of intentionality. Because if I'm not intentional, then the body and spirit piece are not going to align. And some people think you start with the spirit, but you really have to start with the mind, where our mind, let this mind that you have, right, be in Christ. But I have to commit that. And so I'm learning about that. And I'm incredibly excited about my next steps.
Thank you so much for being so transparent. That's wonderful. Bishop Meredith, tell me, you're muted. There we go. Tell me.
Well, I'm doing well. You know, I've came out of stem cell transplant the 27th of October, which was a pretty significant ordeal, you know, because your body is just, what they do to you is just unbelievable. But I went through that. I came out cancer-free, did a PET scan a few days ago, still cancer-free. Went right out of that into radiation for prostate cancer. Came through that, did very well. I had some severe fatigue that I've never experienced before, but I came through that. And during this whole process, I continued to show up at church to at least sit there and, you know, deliver, you know, a sermon of some kind. So I still participated, even though my son and his wife basically ran everything. I just showed up and did what I could. There were times, most of the time I had to sit to do it, but, you know, I made it through. And now I'm getting to the place where I can stand and deliver. And so basically doing much better physically. Matter of fact, you know, I'm back in the gym, working out, exercising and all of that. So physically, mentally, spiritually, I just, as far as my spiritual and the thing is I just feel this deep sense that it's time for me to do something different. It's like it's time for me to leave the pulpit and chart and go in a different route to answer the call of justice, as well as, you know, lifting people. It's just like, I just feel this strong. And so I haven't figured it out. I haven't come to a conclusion. I do know I really enjoy virtual. I really enjoy virtual service. I don't know if it's because I don't have to deal with the people. I don't know what it is, but I like it because I go in, do my message. You know, everything is there. You know, the way we're set up is kind of like, you got green room. I go in, change if I need makeup. I mean, he has everything there for it. It's like walking in a studio, getting ready to film. And so I really enjoy this because, like I said, it's a no-brainer. And so, you know, our discussions are around how to balance this, because, you know, the people are begging to come back in. They just itching to come back in. The Vision Church has come back in. He came back in on the 1st of June. Bishop Clay, he had a packed house. A lot of people in there with no mask on either. I don't know how, you know, with what he went through with the virus, I didn't understand that. But I don't feel led to let the people dictate this. I think I need to hear them, but I still think there needs to be competent leadership in how we come back. But if I could, I'd just stick with virtual, period, and not come back to in-person worship. But, you know, that's just me.
Bishop Meredith, what did you learn during the pandemic?
So during the pandemic, because I was more restricted to staying home, I was kind of glued to the television, watching news and different documentaries and so forth. And what I kind of learned was that we're pretty nasty people. What I mean by that is my grandchildren used to get colds and just stayed congested with flu and colds. Well, they didn't go to school for a whole year. They haven't been to school at all. They got no cold. They didn't get sick. You know, as well as me, what I learned, even though I was kind of restricted, I couldn't ride my motorcycle, and because I didn't completely obey the doctors, I kind of did what I wanted to do, and still got out. But I never got a cold. I never had a sniffle. I never had anything. So I was like, obviously, we're pretty nasty people, because even the flu went down. People didn't really get the flu. So it's like, what I learned is I got to be more protective about how I carry myself and being sanitizing and being clean, because I didn't get and I had the worst immune system during this whole pandemic than most people, and I caught absolutely nothing because I wore my mask and I washed my hands, and I have a germaphobe husband who sprays the house 24/7 with Lysol, and to the point where I'm choking all day. So I think what I've learned is that I have to be, that people are not clean, and you have to take charge of your life with being social distancing and paying attention to the arenas that you're in, so that you can protect yourself from diseases. I think that's kind of the biggest lesson I got out of this.
Thank you so much, Bishop Meredith. Bishop Abrams.
Yes, I think I wrote down those two questions, Dr. Brown. Let me say I'm much better than I was before. After about 3 months of virtual, I had a meltdown, as I like to call it. Of course, my wife is a psychologist. She calls it something else, but I had a small meltdown because I was just missing the people. And the leaders even came to my house to support me. It was a wonderful thing. But I, made the adjustments. I think what helped me was me facilitating groups, peer groups through our Justice Center. And I had to do different topics, talk with people, facilitate conversations. And while I was helping them, it actually was helping me as well. And so I think that's what has helped me to move forward. And then my 80-year-old aunt, well, she's 81 this year, Bishop Flunder. She just turned 81 the other day. But she went and got the vaccination because I was a little skeptical. And, I wasn't really sure. So she got it. She was fine. And so a couple of other my aunts got it. They were fine. So I said, well, I've got to do the best thing here if I'm going to, maintain myself and also protect my wife. So I did get the vaccination, I think February. So I did that to make sure, I was okay. But I really think I found solace at the pier. I went to the pier every Sunday to just clear my head, watch the yachts. And that really helped me, being at the water and just doing nothing. And so I learned that I needed to find myself again. Not what does the bishop enjoy doing, but what does Allyson enjoy doing? And so that I had to really work through because I didn't have not necessarily the physical rigorous schedule, because everybody wanted to have a Zoom meeting. I got zoomed out very quickly. But, I didn't have the physical rigorous schedule that I normally have. And so I needed to find out, well, what do I enjoy doing? Because I am not going anywhere. So what is it that I enjoy doing? So I did have to explore that. But one of the things I also realized is that change is hard. And so, change is hard for my leaders because they wanted to be in church. Some of them had meltdowns too, and we just had to talk, and I really had to minister to them. out of what I was learning. And so we grew together as a team, which was very important. Also, I would say that, just kind of being at home and having downtime was good too. Not be good being with the refrigerator all the time though, because there were lots of wonderful things to eat, and people say they gained a couple of pounds. I just go ahead and say it's just COVID. That's all I'm gonna say. COVID. People see me and say, "Oh, you gotten a little larger." It's COVID, honey, COVID. But I want to say also that perception is important in every situation, and I had to change my perception and to know that God would still move. God was still prevailing. Something significant was going to come out of this, and it absolutely has. And so I have learned to loosen the controlling chains and kind of let some of that go and let God drive, and I just be on the train. And so that's what I also had to learn during this time. And that church also needed to evolve. I totally agree with that. It needed to change. And I'm looking forward to doing both. I wanted to be one of the first people, African-American lesbian women, I should say, to research COVID and the Black church. And so that was what I took my time to do during the pandemic. And that was what I did my project on. And so, it's given me a whole different perspective. And it's amazing how many people did not change a thing. And so I'm hoping that, through some of these conversations that people will realize church needs to change. It cannot remain the same. And so I've learned that. Hopefully others will learn that too. And self-care, Dr. Brown, is my last thing. Self-care is essential. I'm not a person who goes to get my nails done, but I will go and get a pedicure and do some of that other fun stuff, whatever it is. And so I just know that we have to do more of that. And so I'm glad to see Bishop Rawls is on a 3-month sabbatical, and it's just important. It's important for our own sanity.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Bishop Abrams. I'm so happy to hear how everyone is reflecting on self-care and taking care of themselves. It's wonderful. Pastor Elliott, tell me, how are you doing in the pandemic and what did you learn?
Thank you, Dr. Brown. One of the things, I want to start off by saying I am doing better. Initially, with everything shutting down, if anyone has spent more than 10 minutes with me, they know that I am a bit of an extrovert, and having to be confined to the 4 walls of my home, to this space where I not only eat, sleep, but work, it was difficult to say the least. But after trying all the different things that they say, you get up, you walk, you take the dogs out, walk around the block. After trying all of those things, the thing that I can honestly say is that when the dust settled, so to speak, I found myself at a place where I was there with myself, by myself. And that was the place that I found to be better for me. With that, the thing that I learned was, like Bishop Abrams has said, like Bishop Rawls has said, self-care has been absolutely essential in this season of the pandemic for me. I picked up a book from an author who is a pastor out of Atlanta, Tonyia, and her book talks about, of course, her, Bishop Abrams and Bishop Meredith. She wrote a book exclusively about the whole journey of self-care. And that book has really been my meat and bread for a good portion of this pandemic. And I also learned that, if I can just silence the voices of everybody else's itinerary, everybody else's agenda, everybody else's expectation, and focus on not the pastor, not the potentate, but Elliott. That's what my mama calls me. So just focus on what he is assigned to do, the tasks that are assigned to my hands, then things look a lot different. One of the other things is I learned that there were a lot of aspirations that were on the inside of me that were covered up by so many other things. Of course, there's work, there is family, there is church, there is community. And when those layers began to pull away, or if you will, began to be moved away, then I could refocus and realign on some of the things that I wanted to do. And I learned that, you know what? That is the order of the day. Yes, things will never be the same, but that's okay too. I will never be the same. And I think that was the thing that I learned the most, that I will never be the same. I know that we lost a lot during COVID, but I believe that for those of us who refocus and realign, we can also say that we've gained a lot from COVID.
That was great, Pastor Elliott. Thank you. And to our great bishop, I have you answer this question pretty much every week. But I don't know if I'm going to have you answer today. I think that I'm just going to let you say whatever you want. You're muted, Mama.
All right, there it is. Wow. Thank you very kindly, Bishop-elect Vanessa M. Brown. I would venture to say that probably the thing that's most on the top for me right now is that I'm aware that God is in charge. I'm aware that whatever planning and organizing, because like many of you, all of you are leaders, and we are constantly thinking and planning and fundraising and trying to be in the right places at the right times with the right people for the right reasons in order to continue the work that we are called to. But what I really do know, because also most of you are founders of something. You founded something. Even if you're not doing the something that you originally founded, you are founders. And like me, and many who are listening to us tonight, we have a little bit of founder syndrome. Essentially, where we like to, get the ducks in a row and line things up and line the people up and organize. And so God, in God's grace and mercy, shot a hole in all of that in several ways. Because although we have some hard intentions for some of the things that we plan to do next, we really don't know if the stuff that we have planned to do next is going to come off like we want it, that we could easily, a month from now, be making a completely different announcement about what our intentions are. Because, my beloved, we are not driving this train. Without question, the Spirit of God is driving this train. And I'm like you, I've had to plan and replan, prepare and re-prepare, put deposits on and take them off, whatever it was that I had to do, I've had to do that because something greater than me and us is driving this train. And so I found myself at times, and this may be the best figurative way for me to explain it, Bishop-elect Brown, I have found myself just crawling up in God's lap and putting my ear to God's heart and saying, so now really, really, this your girl. What do you want to do next? I'm just curious. You could let me in on it. That is a beautiful place, I think, for leaders to be. We can have a plan, but we can also plan to change it if God speaks to us. Let me say it again. We can have a plan because we're planners, but we can also plan to change it if God speaks to us. I have seen God do some miraculous things during this time that simply would not have happened had it not been this time. So I'm listening carefully for what it is that is God's what's next. And I am listening cautiously because I don't want to make unnecessary and abrupt decisions right in through here. It's kind of counterculture to who I am. I am a consummate decision maker. So it is kind of counterculture to who I am. But there are things that matter, Bishop Meredith. There are things that matter more than how we measure success or how we perhaps measure other people's success. And I believe that God is revealing that to us in powerful ways. So I'm grateful. I'm grateful. I'm changed. I think for the better, but I'm definitively changed. My theology has bursted wide open. I'm less cautious. I'm certainly not afraid. I'm coming out of here with gangbusters when the time comes. We're having the conversation actively in our congregation and congregations throughout the fellowship and our friends and colleagues. But each of us has to hear God for our own group of people and our own set of circumstances. And I'll leave you with this. I declare that we will not emerge the way we went in, and we will be so substantively different that we will hardly recognize ourselves in the mirror, in the spiritual mirror. Thanks be to God for this pregnant time in history. I'm looking forward to God's what's next.
Thank you so much, Bishop. I was in the middle of the pandemic. I was thinking before I asked the next question, and I said, God, what are you doing? What is this? What is this? And she said, Nessa, I'm saving you from yourself. I'm saving you from redundancy. I'm saving you from repetition. And I said, what? I said, yeah, that's what I'm doing. There's some other things I'm saving you from, and saving you for, but I'll get back to you with it. So my next question is, what is different for you, and what will be different for your church when and if you reopen? And if you are not the senior pastor and you're not pastoring, what do you imagine or reimagine the church can be? Let me say it again. What is different for you right now? I think some of you already said what's different for you. What will be different for your church when and if you reopen, or what do you reimagine for church as it continues to move forward? And I'm going to start with Bishop Abrams.
I always know when you're going to start with me. All right. So for me, what's different is I am more cautious and mindful of all of the harmful things that could happen in an enclosed space. And so I don't think, since I've done this study, that I could be extremely comfortable in an enclosed space, not doing certain things or taking certain precautions. And so knowing now that you got to fog that place, church has got to invest in foggers, because you got to be able to have that material and the equipment to fog the place maybe once or twice a week. It depends on how often you're coming in there. And then you have to make sure, I think somebody said, not in a negative sense, but kind of, that some of the people are dirty. You got to make sure that people are using good hygiene. Okay. And so I just think that I'm not going to be comfortable in a space that's enclosed without proper ventilation, without knowing how often that space has been cleaned, and without knowing that people have access to hand sanitizer and things of that nature. Also, just thinking about the choir singing, doing this study made me think about, oh man, how many times have we needed to change the mic cover because of all the stuff that came from somebody who was preaching, praying, or whatever. And so, this is very serious. And so what we're going to do initially is do outdoor, because that is my space of comfort, where we do know, that there is circulation of air, there's air moving. And so for us, that is different. But, having a very large tent, I think one of the leaders asked me recently, well, Bishop, we might need a little bit of air. It's kind of hot in the summer. I said, well, we can, get the portable air conditioning, but we're not going to be in the building. Not at this moment. And so I don't think y'all gonna get Fauci in the building. So since he ain't going in one with the church, I ain't going in one either. So we're gonna be in the tent. We'll be outside, and we're gonna start in moderation. So we're gonna still have our virtual services, but we're gonna have once a month, probably for 3 months, an in-person worship experience, one where we would offer the communion to people, and then other services will be online, and that's initially what we're going to do, and then we'll see how that goes and see what the CDC is saying. But for me, I'm very cautious. And, I hate to be overly cautious, but it protects me. But anybody who coughs, y'all know we turn around and look at them. Anybody who sneezes now, we're going to look at them and, probably even go in a different direction. So that's kind of where I am at this moment.
Well, okay. Thank you so much, Bishop Abrams. Bishop Abrams. Bishop Meredith. So I know you already told us basically, what your church plans are and what will be different. What do you reimagine? Because I heard you say virtual. What does that really mean? Is that one Sunday a month? Is it every week for you? Tell me a little bit more about being virtual.
Okay, so we're discussing one Sunday a month worship. After we do, as Bishop Abrams is saying, we're going to start with outside services, and then gradually move in. But we are really looking at once a month in person, and then following, but every Sunday doing virtual, but once a month doing in person. The other thing that we're discussing that I don't want to go back into is all of the extra fluff that we do in service, the extra, which is unnecessary to me. It's just a bunch of extra. You know how we just prolong stuff that's unnecessary and go on and on. So we're looking at basically a 1-hour service, in and out. The other thing that my son and I have been discussing, and other members, is that people now have become accustomed to living their lives independently of worship on Sunday. They've learned, I don't have to go to church to be saved. I don't really have to go to church to be spiritual. And so my members are just everywhere, traveling all over. So one of the things I was talking to him is, I value the fact that you can live your life and do what you want to do on Sunday. I don't think that people should be forced or, how can you say it, coerced to come. I think they should all just volunteer, but I don't think that this mandatory kind of church, you got to go to church on Sunday, should be presented from the pulpit. And so I value the fact, because I like my Sunday. I like, we tape throughout the week. Well, this past month, we taped all of the service. So I don't have to even go. So on Sunday, I'm gone. I'm out. I'm doing so. I think the other members have learned to value that as well. So that's a part of our dialogue to see where they are. Now, I do have other members, going to other folk churches and all that kind of stuff. That stuff don't bother me. I just think, there's the old saying, if you build it, they will come. And what I'm trying to get my son and, other members to recognize is, if you put something together, if you really build something that people will want to participate in, they will participate. So I don't see that mandatory. You have to have, this Sunday worship. Hell, do it on Wednesday. I'm just saying, I just don't think that we have to come back to doing the same thing. And for some reason, to me, I kind of agree with what you're saying, Dr. Brown, this redundancy. We've got to get out of this redundant behavior, this repetitious behavior that has not led us to do anything. I mean, it ain't changed our communities really as much. So we're doing the same thing over and over again, only to see the same results in our community. And these white folk that went absolutely insane you know, that thing that Southern Baptists vote last night, where they voted to the moderates put a moderate president in over against a conservative. So I'm like, I pay attention to all of that. So maybe we are moving in a direction where God is changing this whole dynamic of how we do church. And I'm like Bishop Flunder said, we just got to pay attention to what God is doing. And so I'm just not, because I'm not a traditionalist as it is. So, you know, I welcome this change too. I just got to figure out how to get my money. That's a critical part. Anyway.
Listen, and Taylor is on here on Facebook Live saying, preach. That's my dad. That's my plan, Dad. That's the Elliott.
You know, I am with you on that, Bishop Meredith. I do believe that God has pushed us out of the four walls of the sanctuary. You know, the first century church experienced something quite like that. You know, there was great persecution in the first church that they were scattered. And I believe that that same dynamic has happened to the 21st century church, in that we got comfortable preaching back and forth to one another. We got comfortable singing our songs. We got comfortable lifting, raising, soliciting our offerings. We got comfortable. And to coin your phrase, Dr. Meredith, we got comfortable with our fluff. So much and so until some of us, you know, I am unapologetically Catholic Methodist, and there you go. And some of us have really struggled with what do we do and how do we worship without the fluff, without the meters and the robes and the vestments and all of that. When you can be in, and there were several Sundays that I was out of the country. Well, not several Sundays, but there were a couple Sundays that I was certainly out of the city, and a couple Sundays that I was far enough away that all I had to do was log in, and I was in worship. I logged in and I paid tithe and gave gifts of support, and I logged in to several different churches. But the thing that I think that will never be the same, Dr. Brown, is the way in which we approach that which we call worship. I believe that for those of us who name the name of God will never again be subject to, if I can coin this phrase, the fluff of Christendom. We will not be able to tolerate it. We won't be able to stomach it. It will get on our last nerves. And let me just use I statements. It gets on my last nerve to see how a virtual service can be fluffy, as if we were, it's not really a word, it's a concept, but how we have not changed. But to reiterate what you said, Bishop Flunder, plans have to change. Things have to change. And I know we don't like to use the word in Christendom to metamorphosize things, but we have to change. We have to morph into what God is calling for now, lest we not hear her voice.
Thank you, Pastor. Bishop Rawls.
Yes, I have, Bishop Flunder, when you talked about sitting in and listening to the heart of God, I've been musing a lot of late. Our September re-entry, just to kind of get this point, the plan is September. The majority of my congregation has actually been vaccinated. We really did a vaccination push. I was slow to walk to it, I have to admit. Bishop Abrams, I was like you. I know a lot about shots in our community and in the past, but you have to look at risk and the mitigated risk to taking the shot versus not taking the shot. At the end of the day, the shot meant more to us. And we were blessed not to lose any members during the entire pandemic. And that is only through the grace of God. I want to reference, so when we do go in, we're doing all of the safe mandates, face masks and all of that still, even though the majority are inoculated. We have had our building, cleaned with a professional cleaning company, because the fogging thing, that's no small thing. So one of the things we've had to consider in terms of our budgeting is to budget for those kind of protocols that were things we never had to really think about before. And so that's in place. We'll be doing a hybrid. We have many, many members that there's no way we would leave these members behind during opening up. And the other thing about that is actually we had a more robust experience during COVID, expanded our membership, our finances were stronger than when we went in. And part of that is we really built our ministry on principles of tithing of time, talent, and money. So the majority of my congregation, 80% of them tithe. And so we just kind of continued what we did. One of the things, I say this to people in terms of what the pandemic did for us, what the pandemic did was magnified what you had. So when you think about couples, if it was a good marriage, in many instances, it was even better because you got a chance to spend time with that person. If there were struggles, the pandemic definitely exposed that. But the same was true for ministries, I think, that those relationships, the foundations upon which much of our work has been built, exposed some things during the pandemic. Where are our strengths? Where are our areas of vulnerability? My musings, however, go broader than that. I have been in this kind of space of Sankofa, really going back, fetching some things. I've just been pulled back, and not just to African roots, but to liberationist thought. And it landed me with, I'm sitting now with Gustave Gutierrez. We're spending a little time together. And I've been fascinated by him. And what drew me there was, how do you dismantle the structure of the Catholic Church? How do you do that? How do you pull that off with poor people, with people who do not hold power? How did you do that? How did you move the whole Catholic Church to this place that moved closer to the poor and closer to the marginalized? And it's fascinating, Bishop-elect, in that what he did was he created these things called base communities. And what base communities were, which is fascinating, was groups of 10 to 30 people. Now, amen, somebody, if those numbers sound familiar, because many of the churches that are under our umbrellas are 10 to 30 people, right? But there were these groups of 10 to 30 people that were not dependent on people with titles. That group of 10 to 30 people studied the Word of God together, but they also did something fascinating together. And it's not talked about a lot in reference to the liberationist view. They made sure people had waste disposal, because again, you're in these, more rural areas of Latin America. They made sure they had electricity, and they made sure everybody had water. Water, waste disposal, electricity. And what I thought about in reference to that was the beauty, the elegance of it. Because what happened was, beyond him, right, these things just sprung up all over Latin America, these community groups of 10 to 30 people who would work together and ensure that that community was okay. So then that led to other questions, Bishops Meredith and Abrams and Pastor Sommerville. The questions were, how are our communities doing? How are the communities in which our congregations are in? If we truly are the Church of Jesus Christ, should more be happening than just what happens within our walls? And unfortunately, I think we lost something prior to the pandemic. We lost the ability, or the, not even ability, because I started off by talking about intentionality. I think we lost some intentionality around things beyond our house. Like how is the school in my community? How are the people faring? And what is reasonable for us to think about? This notion of liberation theology really looks at that, right? How do I build that bridge? But I can't do it if people are hungry, and I can't do it if people are in these other ways. I don't have answers. I have more questions in this musing state, but there's some there. One of the things I did not mention in my introduction, and I'll say this lastly, is with all of the thinking that many people are doing, who gets access to that? Like, who gets access to the thinking really, right? So we're all here, we all know each other, we've journeyed with each other for many, many years, but who's getting this? Who else, right? Outside of this amazing stream, how do we get that out more broadly? And so I'm working with two ministers, Tim Conder and Dan Rhodes, and we're working together to put together a school, an experimental school called the Black Mountain School of Theology and Community. And what the thought of it is, and again, we're still musing together, but it actually was a real school, the original one. And it was a school that experimented in the 1930s and 40s by bringing artists together in a liberal arts school, but the artists were interesting. To Black Mountain, North Carolina, the mountains of North Carolina, they were bringing Black artists. Jacob Lawrence did some of his most important work in Black Mountain. Mercer Cunningham in Black Mountain. The story's not told often, but is this not an opportunity for us? And I've heard others reference this notion of opportunity. The Lord blew a wind, a strong wind that blew away a lot of the dust and debris. And then with what's left, I believe it is now for us to say, what is uniquely ours to do in this season, right? And I think some of what may be possible is to rethink theological education, to rethink the way that churches are even structured and set up. Should we have more lay-led efforts and things like that? So I'm musing, but I'm excited about the musing because I know I'm not alone. And as we find our way to one another, I believe some amazing revolutionary things are about to happen. So I'm just glad to be in the conversation.
That's amazing. That is amazing. Great information. And I do know the book you're talking about. Will you do me a favor and put it in the chat? So put it in our private chat so that we can put it on Facebook Live. Bishop Flunder. So
this is so good.
Yeah, it really is.
This is so good. So here are the real markers, and you know, we got tickled a minute ago at Bishop Meredith, but let's just talk about the real markers, okay? How are we going to raise money? How are we going to generate funds? Basically, Black church is about getting everybody there and about getting them to give with some scripture-based, God-based things, right? Am I doing with that? Some light and some strong intimidation. That's also a part of it, and a lot of things, you know. Some churches added to how to get to heaven, to get a ticket to heaven. You are certainly not going to heaven if you're not giving. I mean, it just is not going to heaven. It's kind of like, for some churches, it's like going to casino. You know, you are trying to win favor with God. How am I doing with that? You're trying to win favor with God. Yes, son, arm twisting, Pentecostal arm twisting, it's the truth. And so you get in the $1,000 line. It's the, you know, the same thing that takes people to the gambling. They think that if they can go and they can pull that thing enough times, at some point they're going to win something. Now, people have been in the $1,000 line a gazillion times and got nothing, but they come back and they get back in the $1,000 line because they're trying to see if they can make it work, right? If that is removed from all of us, if we are honestly going to say that we will no longer play any shell games at all in raising money, that we'll be truthful and honest, we will ask the people to give, and we won't attach anything to it that will make them feel that they lose favor with God. somehow if they don't do it. Let's just say, if you love this church, if you love the work that we do, if we're doing any work at all, let's comma, right? If you love the work that we do, will you donate to it? Will you give to it? Like you buy Girl Scout cookies, will you give to it because you believe in it and you want to be a part of it? When will that possibly be enough? Well, the only way that it will be enough is if we do the work to tear down the structure that makes people think that they can buy favor with God. And that's a very huge thing. I have seen way too many people in $1,000 lines, way too many, who were not paying their bills and not taking care of their families. And it's like throwing dice. You want to see if maybe you get in that line, maybe you can hit because you almost broke. There has to be a better way. One of the things I think Spirit is teaching us is that we are going to have to find other ways to generate money. We do have to generate it. There's no question about it. We can't do this work without generating money. But how do we do that in an honest way? And how do we do that with no shenanigans? That we don't sell any blessed oil, no blessed cloths, no vials of water from the streams and from the rivers. We just tell the people, here's the budget. This is what we have to do in order for us to do the good work that we do. And will you help? And will you encourage your friends to help? So that will we learn to be good grant writers? There's a lot of money out there. There is a lot of money in our counties, in our states, in our country, especially right now. And if we will go after it, we can get it. It is to fund the things that we do. But we can't be trifling. We got to learn how to do it and get us a good grant writer and get on out there and try to see if we can do something in that way. And we've got to this is what Spirit leaves me with in this final gathering, Bishop-elect. We have got to find ways to meet people. Getting together for church allowed us to meet people. So if we're not going to get together for church, we got to find other ways to meet people. We have got to find, and certainly online, but also create gatherings that are not church sometimes. To meet people, let's have a thing. You know how you sneak out to a dance? Well, have a dance. Throw one at your own church. You're set up for people to do performances and things. Have talent shows and singing events, Bishop Meredith, and let the children come on in there and sing a combination of secular music and Christian music in the same space. As we said to Pastor Bishop-elect the other week, Bishop-elect Sonia, throw a dance. She's from the house of ball culture. Throw a ball and mix that music up. Little house music, little church music. Because when they leave the church, they're going to the house anyway. So just let's see if we can stop separating the profane from the holy, as though we are not all of those things at the same time. Profane does not mean I'm ungodly. I'm fleshly. Now I'm trying to tell you so you'll know. I am fleshly, okay? And God made my flesh. And God knows my flesh. And God honors my flesh. How am I doing with that? Right? And I have a life partner with whom I can be fleshly. All right? And God honors that. And God blesses that. And not everybody is made for marriage. But that means we are still fleshly. God knows that. And God honors that. And so whether we are doing it, being at church fleshly, or accepting the fact that as human beings, if we want to gather people, let's find ways to gather people that will keep them well and keep us well, but keep them honest and keep us honest. And there are people who give to causes and they don't have to be tricked. They don't have to be made a fool of. They just give. And how beautiful is that? We need to get engaged in that. That is, if you believe in what you're doing, then be a justice entrepreneur. Let's start finding the funds that we need to do what we are really called to do so that we don't have to play any of these games, right? There are other things that constitute worship. You all have said it so beautifully. There are other ways to go about this. There are other ways that God wants us to be involved and engaged in the world. And if we change, making being seen less important, and we change it so that the front, what we lead with are the causes that we are called to. We are degreed up the yang. We got them now. We ain't playing. Okay? We bursted that glass ceiling. We made everybody who said we couldn't do it understand not only can we do it, we can do it in multiples. You all made it look hard. It's not hard. We got that part figured out. We have moved forward. Now, how do we make being seen less important than doing the things that we are really called to do? And I want to leave with what Bishop Tonyia said a minute ago, which is so powerful that that boy said, and blessed my whole socks off last time we were together. How do we sanctify leisure? How about we start thinking about churches that if it's not leisure, I'm not going. I'm not going to church if I can't go. If I have to wear all that stuff, I ain't going. And that we're gonna eat while we worshiping, you know, or we're gonna ask around in the house, how are you all doing, and let people say something about their journey. Let them testify out loud. That we don't have to have a program that is so programmed that nothing instantaneous can occur. Think of us as virtually sitting on pillows in a circle, like Jesus and his disciples did, right? Perhaps we as churches can share and really share and not even have to know each other so well, but really share until we do get to know each other. And we make holy the people who are outside of the church, just like we make holy the people who are inside the church. God is tearing down walls, or at least God is making them permeable. God is making them glass that's clear, that you can see through and people can see through to us. We are not a special generation and a chosen people. We keep saying that. We are a chosen people. We are not a chosen people any more than anybody else is a chosen people. People say the Jews are chosen. I said, so many of the Jews are not even Jewish. For heaven's sake, they're Europeans. They're not Jewish like Jesus was Jewish. You understand what I'm saying? They're Jewish by religion. They're not Jewish by blood, right? They're not chosen people. Who's chosen? Everyone is special to God. And maybe we can come out of this thinking that way. That's probably the strongest internal feeling that I'm feeling, Bishop-elect Vanessa. I want God to make me malleable like clay.
Yes.
Change me, Lord.
Yes.
I'm ready to change.
Mm-hmm.
You change the circumstances, now change me. Because I'm ready to change.
Yeah.
You change the church, now change me. Because I'm ready to change. You changed how to get our money, now change me.
Right.
Because I'm ready to change. Shift the atmosphere. Do something different. So that we can really be a true presence of God in this world. So, yeah.
Amen, Bishop. I have yes, Bishop Meredith. We're going to unmute you. Just
to pick unmute it. Okay, on what Bishop Flunder was saying, we had started doing what we call turnabout shows, where turnabout, the men dress like the women and the women dress like the men. So it was very difficult at first to do this. I said, do it in the sanctuary. And they sung pop music, they sung gospel music, but it was a turnabout show. So it's very difficult at first. I ain't going in that church doing it. The last one we had, the church was full. What I'm saying, if you stick with something that the people like she was saying, that's leisure, and we raise good money because we charge people $10 to get into the show. And trust me, I had more people at Turnabout than I had in church. That said something to me, you know, that this leisure, create this leisure kind of approach to worship, and it really could connect more people to the church, as well as, you know, there were a lot of people that weren't even in church that were coming to the Turnabout show. So I'm saying there is a way to do this, like you were saying, that we can do it differently and have multiple incomes, like you were saying, coming in, because we had, you know, fortunately we have a building where we rent and all that kind of stuff. But I do think we have to diversify our income, which is something that we've been able to do, diversify, which even though our income, you know, has dropped, is still enough sustaining us, because I have people through my virtual, I have people from all over the country watching and sending money. I opened up $100 envelope from somebody from California today. So I'm saying this virtual, what I've learned is this virtual reaches way more people than your audience. If you put it out there and market it and put it out there, you can gain income from even your virtual, depending on how you market or put it out there. I just wanted to say that because I thought that was so on point about, you know, diversify and do what we can to, and that point that you made about, you know, how it's carnal, it's sin. No, God loves everybody. And we've got that. Anyway, I'm done.
Thank you, Bishop Meredith. So this is the last question, and I'm going to turn us loose because I'm running out of time. It's a bonus question. And the question is, if money and church denominational requirements, for those of you that have them, were no object, what would be your ministry dream come true? Let me say it again. If money and church denominational requirements, for those that have them, were no object, what would be your ministry dream come true? And I'm going to start with Bishop Meredith.
Lord have mercy. She started with me. I think I would love to see, I guess my dream now is to turn this virtual thing into something larger than what it is. Because I just think there's great potential in the fact that God has blessed us with all of these media outlets that are not costly. You know, I can't afford to be on TV. I can't afford to do the Joel Osteen thing, but I can go on social media with all of these different outlets and promote, you know, or do what we're doing, because you YouTube, Facebook, but there's just so many platforms that we can use that don't cost anything, that we can, you know, put us. I guess if my dream would be to really actualize doing this differently with virtual, and then creating opportunities for in-person fellowship that is not restricted to being a worship experience, and bringing that to fruition.
Wonderful. Pastor Elliott.
I think that if no denominational ties or restrictions and money was not an option, one of the things that is dear to my heart that I would love to bring to pass in the earth is to meet the basic needs of our community: food, clothing, and shelter. Unfortunately, what I see in the inner city is a disproportionate amount of individuals that are homeless, that are without food, without clothing, without the basic resources for life. And if none of those restrictions were placed on doing that work, that would be my heart's desire, so that everyone would have enough food, everyone would have a place to stay, and everyone would have clothing appropriate for where they live. that would be my dream.
Beautiful, Pastor Elliott. Bishop Abrams.
I love these types of questions because when money is no limit, I can definitely spend it. So I want to say, I would first love to have a massive building that has a basketball floor, a gym, because I've always, being a former vice president of the school board, always felt like some other places besides the schools needed to have gyms for the young people. So definitely would have that. The bowling alley, the seniors and whoever else want to come in and bowl, we would definitely have that, because you do need to have some recreational activities, not just for the young people, but for the older adults as well. I also would have that studio. Believe it or not, when I was at United Theological Seminary, I took some of the media classes because I'm definitely not racist, but let me say it this way. A lot of the white ministers were taking the media classes. The Black people were not. So I said, well, let me see what's here that they're getting that we are not. So I always wanted a media center so we could teach and train our young people how to do the recordings and all of that, and to prepare them for media ministry in churches. And so definitely would have that. And, right now people record at my house whenever we have to do something, but I need them to be in the church, like Bishop Meredith said. So we'd have definitely a large studio there, and a swimming pool, that's something recreational that's healthy. And so I believe that, that would promote teaching ministries, training ministries. And I cannot leave out the Justice Center because, we definitely want to have a place to work on all of these justice projects, and our Justice Center needs a home. And so we definitely would want to do that, as well as our EJC Wellness Center for mental health. And so there's lots that I can do with this unlimited amount of money, Dr. Brown, that I have at my hand available to me.
Indeed. Bishop Rawls.
I would start with $1 billion fund. I'll put a number on it, right? I want $1 billion fund that would be a source of resources for progressive work in the United States and abroad. It would go to do things like what has just been mentioned. So a place where, though, we're the ones who are holding it. I think more and more it's going to be vital that we break out of this hunger and seeming need for U.S. support, because it's not going to be there. The systems are just not designed for us to win. And when we think about the money that goes through our congregations, through our denominations, if we find ways of being able to harness that and then steer it in, not in ways that one group is holding it, which is why I suggest this kind of fund concept, I think that could be powerful. One of the other things that it could have an opportunity to fund is things like the arts. And also, I keep circling back to education, and I have to keep going back there, because on so many levels, and I'm not just talking about theological education, I'm talking about the kind of education that enables our people to be the most effective leaders they can be in their local communities. So information is available, it's just not centralized. And so whatever we're doing, my hope and thought would be that we create it by us, for us. And the us is a broad us, it's multiracial and the like, but I'm unapologetically focusing also on Black folk and the diaspora, because of how much resources have been lacking in those areas. And when you talk about, well, why are we still here? It is a question. And again, it's folded into kind of my musing. I just turned 63 on June the 8th. And so I've lived more than I likely have left, okay, as the old folk used to say. And so I'm careful and cautious about my time. This was important to me tonight. Because I know these kind of conversations advance things, right? I'm less interested in petty conversation. I don't, I just, and I'm not, and this isn't this has been an amazing conversation. I'm talking about, you all know what I'm talking about. We go to conferences, we go to all these places, we have these conversations, and then it's like, and then what? But I'm excited by the fact that God is moving in a lot of her leaders and moving the same way. Like when I have conversations with other leaders, we're troubled, we are compelled by very similar things. But what also excites me is we're all seeing also different slices of it. And if we can find ways to, number one, heal, when you've been around long enough, you got a lot of people that come in and out of your life. And we're at a place where that's a luxury. Like I ain't feeling you because you talked about me 4 years ago. Forget it. I mean, come on, or you're not part of my tribe. At the end of the day, the bottom line is we have to find our way to one another. And as we do, think strategically. Strategic thinking is what's going to be so vital. And so I'm excited about the possibilities. I'm with Bishop Flunder. I got some big things I'm kind of feeling. I don't have all the answers yet. But as my sister has often said, there's not a map, but I sure don't feel lost. I feel like I'm right where I'm supposed to be, doing right what I'm supposed to be doing. And part of it starts with me doing my own healing, me doing my own, that's what these 3 months is about, me doing my own musings about my own self. And lastly, I have to say, getting to know who the heck I really am. Tonyia Marie Rawls, the daughter of Josephine Rawls, I lost her a bit along the way. Amen, somebody. I lost her in all the giving. I lost her in all the raising money. I lost parts of her in working to save the marginalized and did not realize I was the one withering on the vine, right? And so I'm excited. This is an exciting season. And I know great things are coming, bigger than anything any of us can imagine. I don't think we know, we're not scratching the surface even of what is possible. It is global in scope. It is going to be profound. I went back to Gustave Gutierrez because it was one man who had one thought and he changed the world, literally. Black theology, womanist theology, queer theology, all birthed from this little guy in Latin America who said European Catholics are not the same as Latin American Catholics, and we need to talk about that. And we have our own conversations we also have to have. So I'm extremely excited, and I thank God for this time. Thank you so much.
That was wonderful. Yes, Bishop Abrams.
I forgot one last thing. I think it's important for us to have a broadcast station. I thought Bishop Meredith was going to touch on it, but that would be one thing I would like for us to see, because the affirming churches, I believe, and affirming ministries need a station where we can be televised into the homes of our people and other people. And so I think that would be important, because most of us don't have a place. We can't go on the Word Network. I'll never forget when I left Detroit after I had come out, I had some connections to the Word Network. They didn't want to hear from me. So we need our own network station so that we can have our own churches to be televised and put out so that our people and others can watch our ministries, because we have dynamic ministries. And so we need to be able to have something by us and for us, as we just heard.
That's great.
That is really
and to remove the prejudices, because the very conservative people don't want affirming people and gay people, but the gay people don't want church people. Those are, if you understand what I'm saying, politically informed gay people, if you understand what I'm saying, oftentimes do not want on the stations and broadcasts that they can control, do not want church people, because of the burns that exist. We have some work to do in our own community, right? To reform what we mean by church. We have to be reformed, and then we have to reform the image of spirituality and religion and worship in our own communities. That's a good thing to take up. That's a good thing. Let's get to talking about it. You need a class on that, Bishop Rawls. We need to put that in the fellowship somewhere too. I think that would be a great thing to do.
Thank you all for a wonderful evening. This has been a rich, robust conversation. I appreciate Pastor Elliott, Bishop Abrams, Bishop Meredith, and certainly Bishop Rawls, and of course to our Bishop Yvette Flunder. We are so glad for our Facebook Live audience. Thank you for sharing, for YouTube, and for Twitter being with us on tonight. We're excited about that as well. We ask that you continue to share even after the broadcast is done. I know that people can use some of this stuff for their own churches. They can listen, they can get some things, glean some things from this particular conversation. We're going to do some announcements, and we're going to ask Bishop Flunder to give us our first announcement, and then I will do the rest. God bless you all tonight.
God bless you, everyone. We are so grateful for your presence, to be a part of Beyond the Gatekeepers in this good and powerful and pithy and informing conversation about how we will, as faith people, emerge from this epidemic. And I want to encourage you to help in whatever ways you can, and particularly in this particular announcement, to become a supporter financially via Cash App to $TFAM annual, or by PayPal at www.paypal.me/TFAM Justice. I believe that where our treasure is where our heart is. Where our heart is where our treasure is. And if you believe in what it is that God is making and remaking of all of us during this time, help us to keep talking about it. Beyond the Gatekeepers, support us. God bless you.
Thank you, Bishop Flunder. Next in our announcements, Black Churches for Broadband. We want you to go to www.blackchurchesforbroadband.org. Black Church, there's going to be a Black Church leadership meeting organizing our churches for internet access. Listen, you heard us talk about virtual. Not all churches are going to open back up. And so it's important that you know that this is supported by 6 national Black church organizations. The 6 are the Samuel DeWitt Proctor Conference, the Balm in Gilead, National Conference of Black Churches, Values Partnership, and TFAM. So it's very important. Go to www.blackchurches4broadband.org. June 21st, that's this Monday at 7 p.m. There's a registration link on that website. All right, pass that around to the churches, to the membership, to the pastors, to the bishops, to the apostles, all of those who have an august body of people, so that we don't miss the next movement going forward. So one of the things I know is that we've been behind when it comes to technology in the Black church. And so this is a way of us catching up. So please go to www.blackchurches4broadband.org. Thank God for Bishop-elect Sonia Williams. She is advertising, and we're grateful. She is saying, welcome home. RIM Fellowship United Church of Christ, Real Inspiration Ministries is what RIM stands for. It is a radically inspired movement. A radically inspired movement. They have church on Sundays at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you want more information about the church, please go to www.rimatlanta.org. That's www.rimatlanta.org. Certainly, we have the Healing Place Apothecary. This is the company of our founding bishop's daughter, Nubian Flunder. She is the founder of this company, and it is facial products for your skin. Listen, I use some of the products. They're wonderful. Go to www.THP, which stands for the Healing Place, apothecary.com. That's www.THPapothecary.com. Make your purchase tonight. Juneteenth is here, and if you need t-shirts, we have Sky Michelle's tees and things. You can go to www.skymichelle.com, All items can be customized. Yes, we have Juneteenth collection. We have a dope pastor collection. We have sayings by Bishop Flunder. We have Kara motivational words as well. So many things that we have. Please go to the website, check it out, make a purchase. They're already commercializing Juneteenth. You know, and we know that what that's going to turn into since they made it a federal holiday. Let's support Black businesses. Thank you. Kara Solutions, another Black business. Focus on your passion. Let Kara handle the rest. Administrative, business, and consulting services for dreamers, visionaries, entrepreneurs, faith, and community-based organizations. Also, if you have any technical needs in terms of, you know, getting online for your church, she does that for you as well. Go to www.kara-solutions.com. That's www.kara-solutions.com. You can receive a consultation from her. If you want to advertise with Beyond the Gatekeepers, please send an email to beyondthegatekeepersshow@gmail.com. That's beyondthegatekeepersshow@gmail.com. Certainly, we thank you for being here with us tonight. Once again, as we end our series on revisioning and reopening, we ask that you continue to support the broadcast. As you've already heard Bishop Flunder announce, we thank God for our Facebook Live audience, for our YouTube audience, and for Twitter. Please join us again next week. God bless you. Have a great night.